Let's see if we're going. Yeah, it looks like we are. Okay. And, oops, I don't hear anything, but there we go. And I'm looking around. There, I hear something. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I'm John Miglosh for the Wisconsin DMA and the International Society for Strategic Marketing. You thought I was going to be not here today, eh? Well, no, I'm here, and let's get over to the news. This is an interesting story. I think it's an interesting story. Of course, that doesn't always mean everything. This was a kind of a marketing thing because the Sikh community, in the article, which is down here, in the article, which is where I found everything, what happened was that the Harley Davidson office or distributor in Toronto found out that there's a big Sikh, which is a religion, big world religion, and they wear turbans, real nice ones, and they like to ride motorcycles. And one of the guys who helped develop it said his father. The idea came when Vic Bath, who's from a Sikh background, his father grew up in a small village in India and dreamed of owning a Harley Davidson, which to him was the ultimate symbol of freedom. So anyway, there's a lot of people riding these. Well, they have helmet laws in Canada, and we got them repealed here, but I still wear a helmet, mostly, except if it's 95 degrees and I don't feel like it and just going to the grocery. But mostly I do. But they got some repeal so that the Sikhs could wear their turbans, and no one's ever been killed wearing a turban on a motorcycle, so they, seem to be careful riders. So there was no real basis for not giving them the exemption, but only 2 or 3, I think Ontario and maybe British Columbia are the only ones that have given them an exemption. So you can't ride coast to coast just in your turban. So these guys from Harley came up with this idea of tough turban, and we'll get to that right now. Let's hear this. This is really interesting.
Tradition is really important for a product like this. So we brought in a Sikh consultant.
When Sikhs used to ride into battle, they used to have chainmail, and then they used to tie their turbans on top of that.
And so we took a look at some plastic options to be able to create a chainmail-like matrix that would be able to be incorporated into the traditional feeling turban. So the Dyneema is used in bulletproof clothing. We started to look at some non-Newtonian foams. One of the really exciting aspects of the foam is that it hardens on impact. So it really helps dissipate impact and protect the rider.
Well, when I first saw the tough turban, it really blew my mind in terms of the technology that they were using.
But it's very flexible. There's no rigidness.
Yeah, this is cool.
I honestly would probably forget that I'm wearing it.
It feels like a regular turban I would tie every day.
Bikers kind of always stick together, and it's an identity, and wearing a turban is an identity.
It is nice to know that we are cared about.
This makes us feel part of the Harley family.
That cool or what? And they made it in the public domain. Now I think, a lot of guys I see with bandanas and stuff. And you could make a bandana out of this too. You could make a lot of different headgear. You probably make a baseball cap that has some of these properties. Kind of like any kind of hat you want, you could make, around this technology of the helmet. I'm not sure it's as good as a full face and all that, but I don't wear those anyway. So I just thought, it'd be interesting for you to see how a dream of riding a Harley and a dream of riding with a turban came together and formed this new product. Isn't the world amazing? It's an amazing thing. Anyway, let's get over to the rest of the news, and here we go. Okay, last minute reversal. AT&T and Verizon agree to postpone 5G rollout. So if your company is counting on 5G, well, you may not get it rolled out near the airports. It turns out in the category of unforeseen circumstances that the 5G somehow affects bandwidth in the aviation spectrum. And so theoretically, the planes could forget what altitude they're at just about the time they're trying to land. because the planes, use autopilot. So they have some really fantastic autopilots. I've heard that they can fly the plane right to the ground if need be. So anyway, in the realm of unforeseen circumstances, there's some overlap between these frequencies, and so the FAA is asking the FCC to not allow 5Gs to be installed around airports for the moment until they figure it out. Now, one side says it's impossible. The Airline Pilots Union says it's very possible, and who knows what the real answer is. That's another issue with so many of these scientific things, is you don't know what's what, and it's hard to tell. And both sides have their experts. Okay, COVID-19 feelings report from Valerie Mosel. One of the greatest life lessons I learned from my father is that being in denial can sometimes be a powerful coping tool. In fact, denial can sometimes be incredibly helpful in getting us to the other side. And I've worked on that skill my entire life because, when I was 6 years old or 7, 8 years old, the Cuban Missile Crisis happened, and I was really the first generation to be raised by television. And so we would sit with our parents and watch the nightly news. And, we were also, television was, we weren't too far removed from World War II. So there were a lot of action shows that were about the battles and the fighting in World War II, not the least of which Hogan's Heroes educated me quite dramatically about World War II. And McHale's Navy and some of those. But anyway, Google them. I'm sure they're around somewhere. So, at school we had battle drills when the Cubans were going to parachute into Wisconsin. So it was something that we really, we would hide under our desks for the nuclear war drills, nuclear bomb drills. We were pretty sure we wouldn't make it out of high school. We were told that, over and over and over and over. So if you think climate change is something, think about a nuclear bomb dropped on your grade school. And how do you cope with that? Well, you realize that it's not something that you can really control. So there's apparently been a COVID feelings report, and it really and this is an important point. It really focused on the states with the largest unvaccinated populations also have the lowest spending power. So if you're trying to market a product, you may not care about the unvaccinated as a market, but how do you talk to the vaccinated? And that's what this article is about. And so you have to put all of this in context. In other words, 75% of the people surveyed, meaning the vaccinated people, adjusted their holiday plans. Half of those blamed unvaccinated family and friends. And according to this, there's about 80% of America is vaccinated. 45% blame all unvaccinated Americans, which to me is a little interesting because from what I hear, the vaccinated can equally transmit COVID. So, it's really more about your personal choice, it seems to me. But anyway, 22% said the unvaccinated, yeah, they should be allowed to travel. I think it's pretty funny that only 22% said that. It's like, allowed to travel? Where are your papers, sir? I'm sorry, you're not allowed to board this plane. That's what we think about. Anyway, so they divided the vaccinated into two groups, the romantics and the warriors. The romantics want to get past the grievances and disappointments. The warriors embraced their grievances and disappointments and seemed to blame everything on the unvaccinated, which is, also a curious idea. Anyway, so they tested their emotional responses. One ad showed hordes, I like that word, hordes, of maskless shoppers and also maskless at a football game. And they generated feelings of fear, skepticism, and anger. So be careful about showing lots of people unmasked if you're trying to sell something to the vaccinated. An ad showing a small family of four celebrating the holidays indoors together produced feelings of joy, anticipation, and mild introspection. And that's about what we had. We had 5, I think. And one of us may or may not have contracted COVID uh, a week or 2 weeks later. So anyway, the romantics felt delighted about the prospects of the families reuniting, but the lack of overt safety in some of these commercials caused the warriors to assume the worst. So you might want to focus on a smaller group. You might want to consider creating a fantasy or a CG type family, CGI here, because it'll escape the ire of the warriors. But, I like the first part of the article. Maybe you should just get on with your life a little bit. Take whatever precautions you think are necessary. When I look back at my first 6 years of life, I probably had a combined survival percentage of only 10%, given the 4 or 5 childhood diseases that I contracted. One in particular only has a 50% survival rate. Another one only has a 10%. It has a 10% fatality rate. Anyway, let's get on to something interesting and marketing-wise. This was a really great article by David Kaplan and Jane Levere. It was about a technology. So often you're trying to use the internet, and I was trying to find a water heater and how to make upgrade it or make sure it's working or whatever. And it was an old Kenmore, and I had the exact model number. I had the product. I had the user's manual. So I went to a Kenmore product page, and I put in the exact information, and all I got was a bunch of generalized statements about it on the whole website. There was just nothing was precisely indexed. And my daughter was trying to follow up on a purchase that had not come yet. This was on about Monday, and she went to the website she did it on voice, and all it told her was the most recent order she had placed and the item numbers, not even the names of the items, over voice. And it said, "Is this the order you're checking on?" Well, how did you know? She knew there was one item hasn't been delivered. And, so often with this AI and bots and all this technology that we have, we miss the simple stuff. What's the biggest reason people are calling after the holidays? Probably, did it get delivered or it didn't get delivered? Let's find an order that has, let's not give all the orders that have completed items. Let's just focus on that one item that hasn't, been delivered. And so often web development it ignores this aspect of customer experience. So anyway, there's a product called Yext, and apparently been around a while. But what they're doing is they're saying that keyword search is outmoded technology, because you're always trying to ask, like, does this fitness center require masks? What's your return policy, etc. And rather than a list of hyperlinks to scroll through on the results page, we wanted to answer that question, which is a little bit different. And answers our experience, as we talked about yesterday. If you have customer support that doesn't support and forces me to work with your telephone system, which was also a huge hot mess. I'm trying to remember what retailer this was. I think it was Pottery Barn. So if you're with Pottery Barn, follow up. Most companies simply index all their products and categories and move on to other aspects of their site. Absolutely. It's also a very big detriment to machine learning. Is one of the key factors is, what did people buy? And by what did people buy, we don't mean a part number. And what further, we might mean a lot of things. Like for Baseball Express, they had indexed their products: bats, balls, gloves, other, which is okay, except that doesn't tell you much about customer segments. So one of the moves we made, I called up Rich, the president. I said, "Rich, I noticed you're selling some $4,000 batting machines, pitching machines really, but for batters. Who do you sell those to?" And he said, "Well, colleges, leagues, even major league teams." I said, "Did you ever think about your business as partly business to business?" He said, "No." We only sell to consumers, what he said, which was mainly true. Anyway, we kind of proved to them that there were products that indicated a business to business. In fact, the key indicators were buyers of line chalk or rosin bags, which means line chalk is just the white stripes they put down the baselines. If somebody was putting down white stripes, they owned a baseball diamond or they managed it, and they had need for many, many other products as opposed to a single player. So that different perspective of their own items, and then we flagged all the business to business, all the ones that went with buyers who bought white chalk. Then we wanted to do a fast pitch catalog, which is mainly young girls. Young women play fast pitch, and so a very, very different crowd than the guys who get together at the firehouse to play softball or 8-inch or whatever it is they play in Chicago. So we looked for items that were explicitly female. They had a batting helmet that had a hole in the back, etc. And so we had multiple views of the same items. Was it a batting helmet? Sure. But it was pink and it had a hole for your ponytail in the back. Okay, so by doing that, by thinking more deeply about your data, you can find whole new markets. And this has happened over and over. I would recommend my book where it tells these stories of how to think about your data. And that's what this article is about. Excellent article, I would say. It does for business websites what Google does for the web. I don't know how well it works. I just know that it was an interesting perspective that not only is this important for your website to help people find what they're looking for, but as I said, it's also interesting on how different perspectives on product can show you and yield new markets and new explosive elements inside your business. So I highly encourage you to think more deeply than just indexing keywords. Have a great day. Like and share. Your friends will know you're smart. Make a comment if you like, and we'll see you tomorrow.